Welcome to you all to the very last video of today's class. This is the third part of the research proposal series. Now in the last two videos, we discussed what the research question is and what a broad objective is, right? Now in this video, I'm going to finish off by discussing what specific objectives are. What is the definition of specific objectives and how do we write it? Now again, before I start, when I give you the definition, it might seem a little bit confusing, but right after the definition, I'm going to provide you a total detailed discussion on specific objectives and finally two relevant examples so that you do not have any kind of confusion. All right, now let's first make you super confused with the bookish definition, okay? So here it goes. Specific objectives break down the general objective into smaller, logically connected parts that systematically address the various aspects of the problem. So, confused yet? I know it is really confusing right now. After hearing this, you are like, what the hell? What's going on, right? Do not worry at all. Let's forget the formal definition for the moment. I'm going to explain it using easy terms now. Now, before going into the explanation as promised before, just have a look at this simpler definition. So here it goes. Specific objectives tell us what are the different tasks we are going to do to achieve our broader objective. Again, what are the specific tasks or different tasks or smaller tasks we need to do that will help us to achieve our broader objective or broader aim. All right. Again, do not worry if you are confused. It will be clear once I give you the thorough explanation. I'm going to skip these last two lines for now. Let's move on to the detailed explanation first. All right. Remember in the last video we talked about your aim in life, your broad objective in life of becoming a doctor, right? So I guess you remember that. Now, in order to become a doctor, you need to do a lot of small tasks first, right? It's not like that you are born a doctor or you are going to become a doctor within just one single day. It's not like magic, right? So in order to become a doctor, you need to do a lot of small tasks before that. For example, first, we need to do a lot of studying. I mean, nights after nights of coffee drinking and studying to be a successful doctor. So that's one of the very first things we need to do, right? In addition to that, we have to perform small surgeries, right? So we have to become experts at treating patients by performing small surgeries, right? So this is the second small task. Now, in addition to that, finally, we have to take a final exam before we get our MBBS degree, right? So that's sort of the final exam. So that's our third small task. So now we can see that in order to become a successful doctor, what we have to do first is complete all of these three small tasks. And after the successful completion of all these three tasks, we can call ourselves a successful doctor like him, right? So your dream comes true. So you are a doctor now, right? So your broad objective in life is fulfilled or your aim in life is achieved. All right. Now let me give you a very brief summary of the whole process. So on the left hand side of this diagram, we have all the small tasks, right? And on the right hand side, I have my aim in life or broad objective in life. So in order to achieve my broad objective, I need to complete all of these small tasks. Let me break it down even further. So on the right hand side, I have my broad objective, which is becoming a doctor. Now, in order to become a doctor, I need to study harder, which is my specific objective number one, or small task number one. In addition to that, I have to perform small surgeries, which is my specific objective number two, or small task number two. And finally, in addition to that, I have to take a final exam, which is my specific objective number three. So once I fulfill all of these three specific objectives, I can successfully say that my broad objective has been achieved. So I guess it's a bit clear now. So if I want to give you a general template, it will be something like this. So once I complete all of my specific objectives or small tasks, I can successfully say that my broad objective has been achieved. All right. Now let's go back to the formal definition. See, specific objectives tell us what are the different tasks we are going to perform to achieve our broad objective. So I guess now this definition is a lot clearer. Now moving on, as I said in the earlier video that there is usually one single broad objective for any research topic. However, when it comes to specific objectives, there are multiple ones. So as you have seen in the example, there were three specific objectives, right? So generally speaking, specific objectives should be more than one. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6. However, in most of the cases, you will see that every report has more or less 3 to 4 specific objectives. All right, now let's move on to the formal examples. Remember our research topic? So a study on the change in cooking patterns during the lockdown period. So I'm going to show you how to write specific objectives for this topic. Moving on, for this research, the broad objective was this: to identify the change in cooking habits in the family during the lockdown period. Now, what can be some of the specific objectives for this topic or for this broad objective? What small tasks do you need to perform before we can say that our broad objective has been fulfilled? So again, I'm going to reveal my list, but I must say your specific objectives can be very different from mine. Again, there is no one single correct answer to this. As long as your specific objectives help you to achieve your broad objective, it is fine. So, moving on to my specific objectives. Number one objective is to identify the cooking habits of the family members before lockdown. Now, in order to identify the change in cooking habits, first thing we need to do is identify the cooking habits before lockdown, right? So this is one of my specific objectives. Now, the second objective is obviously to find out the cooking habits of the family members during lockdown. Now, why? Once you have the cooking habits before lockdown and once you have the habits during lockdown, only then you can measure the change, right? So these are my first two specific objectives. The third one is to point out the change in cooking responsibilities of the family members. So obviously, once you have these two, the third one, which is to measure change in cooking habits or responsibilities, it becomes possible to calculate. Now moving on to the next one, I have finding out whether there is any difference between the cooking habits of those who live with their family members and the ones who live on their own. For example, for those of you who live in a hostel, what's your cooking habit during the lockdown period? So why do I want to measure the difference? Why is it one of my specific objectives? Because it's not like all the people of Bangladesh follow the same habits during the lockdown period. It obviously varies, right? So especially I want to measure or find out the difference between those who live with family members and those who live on their own. Because those who live on their own has to take a lot of other hassles, right? So I want to find out the difference in habits between these two groups. So finding out these difference is one of my specific objectives. Now moving on to the next one. I want to discover the reasons that caused the change in cooking habits, right? So when I'm measuring the change in cooking habits during lockdown period, I also want to find out what are the specific reasons behind this change. Is it just a hobby that we are cooking or is it a major necessity, right? So I want to find out these reasons as well. My next specific objective is to identify the cooking experience of the family members. So yes, there has been change. While measuring that change, I also want to measure the experience of the family members. Are they enjoying the change in habits or are they hating it? Is it a good experience or is it a bad experience? So I want to find that out as well. And finally, I want to find out whether the lockdown cooking habits and responsibilities are going to continue in the future. So yes, there obviously has been change, but I also want to find out whether this change in cooking habits is going to stay there in the future even after the coronavirus issue is gone. So I am trying to find out whether this change is a temporary thing or is it going to be a permanent change in habits. So these are all of my specific objectives for my research topic on the change in cooking habits. Now, if we take a closer look, we can say that by fulfilling all of these small tasks or specific objectives, we will be able to fulfill our broad objective. Now, moving on to my next example. My second research topic was Generation Z and its digital media consumption patterns. So I am going to show you how to write specific objectives for this topic as well. Now, this is the broad objective for this research topic: to identify the types of online content consumed by the Generation Z cohort. Now, before I reveal my own answer, I want you guys to think of three specific objectives for this topic or for this broad objective. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think of three specific objectives for this topic. And your time starts now. And your time is up. All right. So here is the broad objective. I guess you guys already know that. And here is the list of specific objectives I have. Number one, find out the types of online content watched by the Generation Z cohort. I mean, this specific objective directly relates with my broad objective, right? So types of online content and again, types of online content. So through this specific objective, I want to find out what type of online content is preferred by everyone. Is it TV series or is it movie? Is it Facebook or is it something else? So I want to find that out. Now my second objective is to find out the number of hours spent on different online media portals. How many hours daily on an average is spent by the Generation Z cohort? And besides finding out the daily total number of hours, I also want to find out how many hours are spent behind each type of online media. So how many hours do you spend on Facebook? How many hours do you spend on Netflix? How many hours do you spend on LinkedIn? And that sort of stuff. Next, I want to find out the difference in the taste of digital content among different age groups of the Generation Z cohort. I mean, obviously, people of all ages do not like the same content. So, just to explain, maybe I want to find out what types of content are preferred by those who are 15 to 20 years of age. Again, what type of contents are preferred by those who are 25 to 30 years of age? Is there any difference between these two preferences or are they same? I mean, do the younger ones prefer movies or TV series? Do the older ones prefer Facebook or LinkedIn? And that sort of analysis. Moving on, I also want to make a list of the popular social media and online content streaming platforms. So after doing all of this analysis, I want to make a list of, say, top 5 social media platforms or top 3 online content streaming platforms. I want to find out whether Netflix is at the top or Facebook is at the top. In summary, which social media and online platforms are the most preferred ones. Okay, my next specific objective is to discover the reason of different types of online content consumption. So why do different types of people use different types of online content? I want to find out when we use Facebook, is it for friendship or is it for professional connection or for some other reason? When we watch movies, is it for time pass only or is it just a habit? So, in summary, this is my list of 5 specific objectives. And again, if we take a closer look, we will be able to see that these 5 objectives help us to achieve our broad objective. All right. So, our discussion topic for today is done here. So for you guys, I have the last piece of homework. So what you have to do is write down 4 specific objectives for your own research project, right? So the one that you worked before, you have to work on that again and write down 4 specific objectives as a group. I guess we are done for today's class. Thank you for listening to today's lecture. So once again, if you have any confusions, please feel free to contact us at these addresses. So for now, we are done for today. See you again in the next lecture.